What if the person everyone underestimates turns out to hold all the cards? Stay with me as we dive into a story where quiet strength triumphs over loud arrogance, and where the greatest revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Picture this: a world where wealth isn't just money, it's a performance. Every gesture calculated, every purchase a statement, every gathering a stage for financial theater. That's exactly what Maya Chen discovered as she sat in the opulent dining room of the Blackstone estate, nestled among the rolling hills of Sonoma County. The monthly Blackstone family gatherings were legendary for all the wrong reasons. Tonight promised to deliver the usual spectacle of competitive bragging disguised as casual conversation. Maya positioned herself strategically near the ornate marble fireplace, her vantage point perfect for observing the circus about to unfold. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Maya wasn't just another spectator in this theater of excess. "Just secured a ski lodge in Aspen," announced her cousin Oliver, his voice dripping with manufactured nonchalance as he swirled his vintage Bordeaux. "Right next door to that tech mogul who owns half the cloud computing industry." Sophia, Oliver's sister, scoffed dramatically while adjusting her limited edition Hermes bag. "Amateur," she declared with theatrical disdain. "We just finalized negotiations on a private island estate in the Greek Isles. The helicopter pad alone has ocean views that can't be purchased. They're simply inherited through good taste." Maya concealed her amusement behind her simple glass of sparkling water, fighting back a knowing smile. If only they realized what secrets sat quietly in their midst. The conversation took its predictable turn when Aunt Vivian's sharp voice cut through the room like a blade. "Maya, darling, you've been remarkably silent tonight." Oliver leaned forward with the kind of fake concern that barely masked cruel curiosity. "We've all been wondering about your living arrangements." And there it was, the opening they'd been building toward all evening. "What specifically?" Maya responded, setting down her glass with deliberate calm. "That tiny rental unit in Seattle," Oliver continued, his tone suggesting he was discussing something distasteful. "Still paying month to month, right?" "The one on Pine Street?" Sophia added with exaggerated surprise. "I honestly didn't realize people our age were still stuck renting apartments." Little did they know, Maya was sitting on the biggest secret of all. The Pine Street complex wasn't just her home, it was the very first commercial acquisition of her company, Summit Ventures. To her family, she appeared to be a struggling tenant barely making ends meet. In reality, she owned the entire building and most of the surrounding block. "The space suits my needs," Maya replied with practiced neutrality. "Sweetheart, you're nearly 40, Aunt Vivian interjected with a patronizing smile that could cut glass. "Don't you think it's time to invest in something substantial? Something that reflects the Blackstone legacy?" What they didn't realize was that Maya had already invested in something substantial, a $2.3 billion real estate portfolio that included commercial towers, residential complexes, and yes, even Blackstone Tower, the very building where they held their monthly board meetings. Maya had quietly acquired Blackstone Tower 6 months earlier, through a complex network of shell companies and private equity partnerships that her family would never trace back to her. While they saw her as the family disappointment, she had been systematically building an empire based on ethical development and tenant protection, everything their flashy, exploitative projects weren't. "I'm doing just fine," Maya responded simply. Oliver smirked with undisguised contempt. "You couldn't even qualify for a basic mortgage." Stay with me here because Maya's response is about to flip everything you think you know about this story. Maya leaned back in her chair, letting them continue their performance. Soon enough, lease renewal notices would cross their desks, and they'd see exactly whose signature appeared on the official letterheads. Their father, Jonathan, finally looked up from his wine with mild interest. "Now, Oliver, not everyone possesses your natural business instincts." Maya chose her own path, Aunt Vivian added with a theatrical sigh, as if Maya had personally disappointed the entire family by not marrying into investment banking or launching a luxury lifestyle blog. They assumed Maya spent her days showing cramped studio apartments to cash-strapped graduate students, barely surviving on minimal commission checks. What they couldn't have imagined was that Maya Chen, the family's supposed underachiever, was also the anonymous powerhouse behind Summit Ventures, the secretive firm that had been strategically acquiring prime commercial and residential properties throughout the Pacific Northwest for over a decade. Speaking of real estate developments, Sophia interjected with a gleam of malicious excitement in her eyes. Have you heard about the situation developing on Pine Street? Some mysterious investment firm bought that entire section of the city. Word is they're planning complete demolition, she added with mock sympathy. I suppose that cramped apartment of yours will finally be demolished. Maya maintained her carefully neutral expression. She was the mysterious buyer, and demolition was the furthest thing from her mind. The Pine Street complex was an architectural treasure. Original brick facades, authentic period details, and most importantly, longtime residents who deserved protection. She was deep into a historically sensitive renovation that would preserve the building's character while improving living conditions. Really? Maya asked with feigned ignorance. I hadn't heard about that. Well, naturally you wouldn't, Oliver responded with a condescending smirk. Transactions of that magnitude are completely outside your sphere of experience. But here's where the story takes a turn that will leave you speechless. Keep watching to see how Maya's carefully constructed facade finally crumbles, in the most spectacular way possible. If you do get evicted, Aunt Vivian chirped with false brightness, you can always return to the guest cottage. We'll help you locate something more appropriate to the Blackstone name, perhaps even introduce you to someone suitable. I'm perfectly content with my current situation, Maya replied flatly, and so is my landlord. Sophia released a tight, artificial laugh. You can't live such a small existence forever, darling. The Blackstone name used to carry weight in this state. It still did carry weight, just not in the way they imagined. In real estate circles, Summit Ventures had become synonymous with ethical development and community-first investing, the complete opposite of her cousin's flashy projects that bulldozed established neighborhoods for social media attention and quick profits. Actually, Jonathan said, setting down his wine glass with unusual seriousness, tonight's gathering is partially about business concerns. The board has growing anxiety about Blackstone Tower's new ownership structure. Maya tilted her head with carefully performed interest. Summit Ventures acquired controlling interest 6 months ago, he continued. Nobody can identify the actual owners. Speculation suggests international investors with unlimited resources. Oliver nodded sagely. Has to be foreign money. These global tycoons have an obsession with acquiring landmark properties. If only they knew their feared mystery investor was sitting right there in a thrifted sweater and worn leather boots, quietly planning their downfall. Jonathan's voice grew more troubled. They're demanding comprehensive answers about our financial practices, specifically our creative accounting methods. Creative accounting, like Oliver's technique of redirecting building maintenance funds to finance his Aspen ski lodge, or Sophia's strategy of categorizing her designer handbag purchases as client relationship expenses. I'm certain it's nothing serious, Aunt Vivian said, though her pearl necklace trembled with barely concealed anxiety. The Blackstone reputation still commands respect. That's exactly the problem, Jonathan interrupted grimly. This Summit Ventures entity doesn't seem impressed by family names or historical reputation. They've ordered a complete forensic audit. Maya watched the realization ripple across their faces, panic carefully hidden behind designer smiles and forced confidence. A thorough audit wouldn't just expose questionable expenses, it would demolish their entire system of financial manipulation. Stay with me, because you're about to witness the moment when the hunter becomes the hunted. Perhaps Maya could assist us, Sophia suggested suddenly, her tone artificially sweet. You work in real estate, don't you? Maybe you have connections at property management companies. Just like that, Maya transformed from family embarrassment to potentially valuable resource. They all turned toward her with sudden attention and manufactured interest. I primarily handle smaller residential transactions, Maya responded smoothly. Nothing approaching the scale of Blackstone Tower. For heaven's sake, Oliver exploded. You can't even help your own family navigate a simple business challenge. Their mother shot him a warning glance, but her silence spoke volumes. Even Jonathan had returned to his phone, completely uninterested in defending Maya from the verbal assault. What they had no idea about was how helpful Maya was about to become, just not in the way they desperately hoped. The next morning, Summit Ventures would release a public statement that would change everything. Effective immediately, Blackstone Tower would undergo major operational restructuring. No more shadow budgets, no more nepotistic contracts, no more treating the building's resources like a family credit card with unlimited spending. Maya glanced around the lavish penthouse, artwork purchased with maintenance funds, furniture marked up to triple market value, fixtures installed by Sophia's husband's construction company at grossly inflated rates. Anyway, Maya said, rising and brushing off her simple jeans, some of us have early morning commitments. Sophia smirked with practiced superiority. Off to show more rent-controlled studio apartments to broke college students? Maya slung her weathered leather bag over her shoulder. Inside were board presentations, legal filings, and renovation proposals worth more than everything in that opulent room combined. Maya, darling, Aunt Vivian called with artificial sweetness. Next time, perhaps dress more appropriately for a Blackstone family gathering. Appearances matter tremendously in our social circles. Maya smiled genuinely for the first time all evening. Don't worry, she said. Tomorrow I'll look exactly like the Blackstones expect to see. They just didn't realize she was already the one controlling every move in their elaborate chess game. If you've been quietly cheering for Maya throughout this journey, you won't want to miss what happens when the boardroom doors finally open. Subscribe now to witness how this family reacts when they discover the nobody they dismissed actually holds the keys to their entire kingdom. The following morning, Maya stood in her real office, an entire penthouse floor overlooking downtown Seattle, preparing for the confrontation she'd been orchestrating for over a year. Her assistant, Rachel, entered briskly and placed a fresh cappuccino beside Maya's laptop. The Blackstone Tower board has assembled, Rachel reported efficiently. Your family arrived early, attempting to charm the independent board members before the meeting officially begins. Maya smirked, imagining Oliver and Sophia frantically working the room in barely concealed desperation. Audit documentation is printed and distributed. The forensic accounting team uncovered even more irregularities than our initial estimates suggested. Rachel paused meaningfully. Are you absolutely certain about proceeding? Once your identity is revealed, there's no possibility of returning to anonymity. They need to understand, Maya said quietly, that legacy isn't a license for financial abuse. She turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching her reflection in the glass. Gone were the casual jeans and thrifted cardigan. Today she wore a sharp charcoal Armani suit, clean lines, understated power. The kind of professional look Aunt Vivian used to dream Maya would wear to attract a wealthy husband. Instead, she'd wear it to dismantle their house of cards. The ownership revelation goes public in 20 minutes, Rachel added. Once it hits the business networks, your cover will be completely blown. Then it's time to begin, Maya said, picking up her leather briefcase. The Blackstone Tower boardroom fell silent as Maya entered. Her family was clustered at the far end of the polished conference table, looking nervous, underdressed, and visibly shaken by the morning's developments. Who exactly are you? Oliver barked aggressively. This is a private board meeting. Maya calmly placed her briefcase at the head of the imposing conference table. I'm Maya Chen, she announced clearly, founder and sole owner of Summit Ventures, the company that owns this building and several other properties your family has been illegally leveraging for personal expenses. Aunt Vivian's face turned ghostly pale. Sophia's lips parted in shock, but no sound emerged. Jonathan's hands gripped his pen so tightly his knuckles turned white. Maya, he whispered in disbelief. She nodded professionally. Good morning, everyone. Maya opened her briefcase and began systematically sliding comprehensive audit reports across the polished table surface. Shall we review your financial documentation? What happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. Keep watching to see how a family built on arrogance crumbles when faced with truth. This is completely insane, Oliver stammered desperately. You're just... What exactly are you? The family disappointment? The renter? The woman who shops at thrift stores? Sophia blinked rapidly in confusion. But you show apartments to college students. I work, Maya said simply. And I built something genuine based on integrity, not illusions. The board members watched in stunned silence as the proud Blackstone family began unraveling one revelation at a time. These folders, Maya continued methodically, contain detailed documentation of every misappropriated fund, inflated invoice, and fabricated expense report. Comprehensive evidence of financial irregularities involving Blackstone Tower's operational accounts. She began distributing the final set of damning documents. Oliver, would you care to explain the $2.5 million in supposed roof repairs that actually financed your Aspen ski lodge? He flushed so intensely, Maya thought he might collapse from embarrassment. Or perhaps Sophia would like to walk us through her husband's construction invoices that charged 4 times market rate for basic electrical work. You would publicly humiliate your own family like this? Aunt Vivian gasped in horror. No, Maya replied evenly. You humiliated yourselves through your actions. I'm simply ensuring the mess gets properly cleaned up. Jonathan finally found his voice, low and pleading. Maya, sweetheart, surely we can explain these discrepancies. Don't, Maya said, raising her hand firmly. I've watched this family treat our great-grandfather's legacy like a personal bank account while you mocked my supposedly humble lifestyle. I was building something better, based on values, not vanity. But why? Sophia asked, still dazed by the revelations. Why pretend to struggle financially? I never pretended anything, Maya replied firmly. I chose to live modestly and invest wisely. You simply assumed that wealth had to be ostentatious and loud. The Pine Street building, Oliver said, still stunned. You actually live there? I own it, Maya corrected, along with most of that neighborhood. And no, I'm not demolishing anything because some of us care about communities and people, not just profit margins. Suddenly, phones around the conference table began buzzing with urgent notifications. One board member looked up from his screen, reading aloud. Summit Ventures reveals CEO identity. Maya Chen, estranged Blackstone family member, confirmed as owner of $2.3 billion real estate portfolio. Another member continued reading. Chen ranked among top ethical developers nationwide, known for historic preservation and tenant protection initiatives. Sophia fumbled with her phone, muttering in panic, "This will destroy our reputation completely." "No," Maya said firmly. "This will save you from destroying yourselves. Effective today, Blackstone Tower will operate with complete transparency. No more shell games, no more sweetheart contracts, no more treating building resources like family petty cash." Oliver tried to sound defiant, but his voice trembled. "And if we refuse to comply?" Maya smiled coldly. "Then I'll forward these audit reports to federal authorities. I'm confident the IRS would find them absolutely fascinating reading material." The silence that followed could have been cut with a knife. "What exactly do you want from us?" Jonathan finally asked, his voice defeated. "I want you to remember what the Blackstone name represented before all this corruption," Maya replied, meeting each family member's eyes in turn. Great-grandfather built communities and provided homes, not just profit margins and ego projects. Maya stood up, gathering her documents with methodical precision. "You have a choice. Work with me to restore that honorable legacy," she said evenly, Or find alternative living arrangements. I hear there are some lovely rental properties available in the suburbs. She turned toward the door, ready to leave them with their shame and decisions. Maya, wait! Jonathan's voice stopped her just as she reached the exit. I was completely wrong about you. Yes, she replied quietly. You were. What followed played out like something from a corporate thriller that dominated business headlines for months. The media couldn't get enough of the hidden mogul of Seattle, the woman who had quietly built a real estate empire while her own family dismissed her as a failure. The story dominated business news cycles and social media discussions about family dynamics and hidden success. Aunt Vivian resigned from 4 prestigious local charity boards, too embarrassed to show her face in social circles. Sophia's husband's construction company collapsed within weeks of the audit's public release, unable to survive the exposure of their fraudulent billing practices. But not everything that followed was bitter revenge and family destruction. Oliver, finally confronting real consequences for his actions, enrolled in a community college business ethics program. He began volunteering at a homeless shelter, working with people transitioning back into stable housing. He later told Maya it gave him more genuine satisfaction than his luxury real estate acquisitions ever had. Jonathan asked to learn about Maya's business philosophy, not as a father trying to reclaim control, but as a student genuinely wanting to understand what his daughter had accomplished through integrity and hard work. 6 months after the boardroom confrontation, Maya was sitting in her Pine Street apartment. Yes, she chose to keep it, reviewing quarterly reports that told a story of genuine success. Blackstone Tower was thriving under ethical management. Tenant satisfaction had increased dramatically, and small businesses on the ground floors were generating healthy, sustainable profits. A gentle knock interrupted her concentration. Opening the door, she found her mother standing in the hallway, wearing simple jeans and no makeup, a transformation that took Maya a moment to process. I received your invitation, her mother said, holding up a simple card. A community holiday celebration in the courtyard. Maya nodded. It's probably not your usual social scene. No, her mother admitted, glancing around Maya's modest apartment. But I'm discovering that perhaps social scenes aren't everything that matters. She picked up a framed photograph of Maya at 25, beaming with pride at her real estate license graduation ceremony. I never asked you, she said softly, why you chose this particular path in life. Because I wanted to build something authentic and lasting, Maya replied. Not just acquire impressive things to display and discuss. And now, her mother murmured with a mixture of awe and regret, you control more real wealth than all of us combined. I do, Maya acknowledged, but control was never the ultimate goal. Creating positive impact was always the purpose. Her mother looked at her seriously. Would you be willing to teach me about what you've built? Come to tonight's celebration, Maya suggested. Meet the families who've lived in this community for decades. Listen to their stories. That's where authentic legacy actually begins. Sometimes the person everyone pities becomes the one everyone must learn from. And sometimes the most powerful kind of triumph doesn't make noise. It simply endures and creates lasting positive change. Later that evening, Maya stood by her apartment window, watching lights twinkle across Seattle. This city she had quietly and ethically made her own through years of patient work. Blackstone Tower glowed in the distance, no longer a monument to greed and family exploitation, but a symbol of restoration and ethical business practices. Below her window, the Pine Street building hummed with quiet, authentic community life. Original brickwork had been carefully preserved, historic wooden beams restored to their former glory, and garden courtyards created where families could gather and children could play safely. Her phone continued pinging with new messages, partnership offers from ethical developers, speaking invitations from business schools, acquisition opportunities from like-minded investors. Summit Ventures was in high demand now, but Maya maintained her humane schedule and grounded daily routine. Success to Maya had never been about outshining her past or proving anyone wrong. It was about building something meaningful that would matter long after she was gone, something that would last and continue creating positive impact for generations. A week later, at the Pine Street Community Holiday Celebration, Maya stood beside the garden fountain, watching her family members slowly acclimate to a world they had once dismissed as beneath their social status. Her mother sat beside Mrs. Rodriguez, a tenant who had lived in the building for 42 years, listening with genuine interest to stories about raising 3 children in the community. Oliver helped string holiday lights alongside Mr. Thompson, a Korean War veteran and the building's longest-term resident. Sophia laughed genuinely while helping a table of neighborhood children decorate sugar cookies. Gradually, they were all learning that real wealth isn't about what you can flaunt at dinner parties. True prosperity lies in what you preserve, what you share with others, and what you elevate in your community. Jonathan joined Maya near the hot chocolate station. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "your great-grandfather always believed that buildings should shelter hearts and dreams, not just generate maximum profits." Maya nodded. "I found his original business ledgers in the company archives, handwritten notes about protecting long-term tenants and maintaining affordable housing. Somehow we forgot those founding principles." He looked at her not like a daughter who had disappointed family expectations, but like someone who had carried forward a torch that he had allowed to dim through neglect and greed. "You could have completely destroyed us financially and socially," he said quietly. "That was never the point," Maya replied, watching a little girl spin joyfully under the twinkling fairy lights. "I wanted to build something that would outlast all of us. Sometimes the greatest success isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about offering everyone a better version of what's right." If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or quietly written off by people who should have believed in you, then perhaps you recognize something of yourself in Maya's journey. She didn't set out to prove anyone wrong or seek revenge against family members who dismissed her dreams. Maya simply wanted to build something genuine and lasting, something that couldn't be taken away because it was rooted in authentic values rather than superficial displays of wealth. What would you have done in Maya's position? What have you been building quietly while others doubted your potential? Sometimes when the world expects nothing from you, the answer isn't to become louder or more aggressive. The answer is to become stronger, more focused, and more committed to your authentic values. You don't need anyone's approval to begin pursuing your dreams. You need clear purpose, consistent daily action, and the patience to let time reveal the truth about what you're capable of achieving. Legacy isn't something you inherit from previous generations. Legacy is something you create through your own choices, actions, and commitment to principles that matter beyond temporary success or social approval. Sometimes the best form of triumph isn't revenge at all. It's becoming exactly who others said you could never become, while helping them discover better versions of themselves along the way. The story continues, and there are more journeys ahead about resilience, redemption, and redefining success on your own authentic terms. Because in the end, true victory isn't about defeating others. It's about building something that lasts, something that matters, something that makes the world a little bit better than you found it. What will you build in the quiet moments when no one is watching? What legacy will you create that reflects your deepest values rather than others' expectations? The choice, as always, is entirely yours.